Today I'm gonna do something completely different than what I usually do in my videos. Welcome back to Arctic Retro. Hope you're having a lovely day. As you can see, I'm not in my usual spot up in the attic. I'm down here in my computer corner in my kitchen. And here's where I do some other stuff than retro computer related. Here is where I sit editing the videos and also do a lot of programming. In my regular work, I am a software architect and developer, and the main tools I use is Visual Studio, Visual Studio Code or VS Code, and C# and .NET from Microsoft. And recently I saw that there was a new SDK and extension for VS Code that makes it possible to develop programs for the Commodore 64 using exactly those tools, C# and .NET. So naturally I jumped in the chair and then I thought to myself, well, I need to check it out, test it out and make a video about it. So let's dive right into it here and see how that works. Yes, let's have some coffee and dive into this. By the way, you might be wondering why I have two keyboards on the desk. Well, one is for my Windows PC and the other one is for a Macintosh. And I switch between those, and the reason I have a Macintosh is that I do some iOS development from time to time. And here's my equipment. It's a rather standard PC, and then there's this Mac Mini M1 with a lot of dust. And also I do play some Flight Simulator from time to time, so I have that one there. And my desktop background, it's my beloved hometown, Bodø. So what am I talking about? Well, it's something called the RetroC64 and you find it on github.io. This is the documentation. And if you're already familiar with .NET and C# and coding for that, you should have no issue installing this. So on this GitHub.io page, you find everything you need, documentation. It tells you all about the different features of the library and how to do sprites, bitmaps, music, all kinds of helpers you can use. If you want to program against the various registers, there's some quick references, helper methods, for example, to convert a string to PETSCII and all kinds of stuff. But this is not completed yet, so this is a work in progress. So you need to have the Wise emulator installed and you need to set up the path for the x64sc.exe file so that the SDK, when running inside VS Code, can use it. And then you just install the things you need, the RetroC64 VS Code debugging extension, and then you need .NET SDK 9. So I already have the Wise emulator installed, and if you're not familiar with that, it's one of the best Commodore 64 emulators, and it runs on Windows, Mac and Linux. And by the way, you can code .NET and C# and you can use this extension here on both Windows, Linux and Mac if you want. I'm using Windows, that's what I'm used to. Yes, and here it's running the Commodore Christmas demo, which I think is great, and this is because it's pretty soon Christmas. I like to watch this during Christmas. If you just follow the instructions here, you should be good. It is for use with the VS Code or Visual Studio Code editor, and this is the go-to editor for most of Commodore. Not Commodore, for most .NET developers. I also use the full Visual Studio at work. You need to install some extensions, and I have .NET extension, C# base language support, and the C# dev kit from Microsoft. I'm also obviously using GitHub Copilot. I have a subscription for that. And here's the RetroC64 extension. So if you want to install it, you can do it directly with a link on the documentation page, or just search for it. Yeah, it came up as the first hit when I typed retro. So that's about it. And now you can start programming. And you can program both basic and assembly with this, and it's based upon a library, or SDK as it's called, where you actually use .NET and C# to set up a program that you want to have run on your Vice emulator. And of course you can get it transferred over to the real computer if you want. Now, to start a new program or project, you can either use VS Code GUI, but you could also just use the .NET command. So here I'm making a new console application called Hello Basic, and then I just go into there, and then just open the folder that you just created, Hello Basic, and yeah, here you find the code. The program is just now a simple Hello World output, so there isn't much Commodore 64 related here. Before you can use the SDK in your programs, you need to install a NuGet package for this particular project. And to do that, you go to the console and then you type a command, .NET add package RetroC64. This will add the required component into your project. Yeah, that was it. Now you can start doing some programming for the C64 in this. There is some example programs on the website. The first one is this one, where you can run a simple basic program. So we simply replace the small program we have here with this one. And as you can see, it's a class called Hello Basic, and it's inheriting from C64 app basic, that's all. And then you just write your basic program into a text variable like this, easy and simple. Of course, you can do a lot of stuff that's more advanced than this. Then to run this, you go back to your console and type the command .NET watch --run, and it should now load the Vice emulator. Yeah, which it does. So here it actually loaded it and ran it automatically, and it says Hello World 1. We can of course change this to something else. Hello from Arctic Retro. I guess if you type lowercase letters, it will change into the C64 variants, which doesn't have lowercase letters unless you change to lowercase mode. You can just exit that with Ctrl+C and run it again. Yeah, you can see here it printed the lowercase like that. And no, I don't remember what to type on a regular keyboard to change into lowercase. Yeah, there you go. It's Shift Tab. So if you're a random .NET developer or you're new to this channel, I just want to tell you that my main focus is and has been hardware and repairs and restoration of all kinds of retro computers and electronics. So I hope you still want to subscribe to my channel, and maybe you find some interesting videos here. I might do more videos like this later, of course related to retro computers. I also have a page on Patreon called Arctic Retro. Here you can join for free, but you can also support my channel, and then you will get ad-free videos way earlier than everyone else. Anyway, back to the RetroC64, and I haven't really been using it yet. I just wanted to show you, and I explore it a little bit now as I go. Now, I'm assuming that you might not be familiar with the Visual Studio Code editor. But you can also have a terminal right into VS Code, and you can run your commands from there instead. That way you don't have to change into a separate window. But you don't have to exit the program and start it again each time you want to make a change. You can simply do the edits you want. Let me change it to something else. And I simply just hit save to save it, and then it just reloads and executes immediately. And that is what that .NET Watch command is doing. It's watching your files and reruns it again if there's any changes to your files. You can always set up your VS Code environment here so that you can simply just run it directly from the menu, and you can also do debugging and those kind of stuff. Anyway, that was simply basic, and quite simply just enter the basic text into here. Maybe not that interesting, but what's interesting is that you can do assembly programming, and so let's look into that. Just gonna close VS Code now and just make a new project, and now it's hello ASM, and I'm using the same examples as on the web page. And here we have the project for hello ASM. And if we paste in this example program, you see it gets some red squiggly lines. That's because I forgot to install the NuGet packet first. And that was .NET add package RetroC64. That should resolve that. Yes. And here we can see it's setting up some assembly related stuff. It has the C64 registers. We can go into that and take a peek at what's there. And here's all the constants for the various C64 registers. Seems to be a whole lot of stuff. These are just constant names. That makes it unnecessary to remember all the register addresses. Instead you can refer to names. But here's the program. It's just extending C64 app ASM program, and here you just add assembly code like this. So here it's begin code section, and there's assembly instruction LDA, which is load the accumulator, I think, with the color red. And as we see from the C64 register, color red equals 2. But of course, if you prefer, you can always just use the number 2 instead. And there it stores it. It uses the address for the VIC2 background color 0, which is well known 53281. But of course, if you prefer, you can just write 53281 here. Don't mind the text that comes up here. It's just Copilot that tries to figure out what I want to do. Yeah, and then it sets the color green into the border color, and then it runs an infinite loop, and then it ends the code there. So let's see now if we try to run this with the .NET Watch. Yeah, there you have it. It changed the screen and border color, and we can of course go change that. Let's change it to color black. Just hit save and it runs it immediately. But it goes into an infinite loop. We might not want that, so we can just remove that line. And yeah, actually now Copilot has started to understand how this works, so it suggested a break there. But then it just does what the program is supposed to do, and then just exits to basic immediately. Yeah, so this is a SDK, which makes it easier to write a program, but you still need to know what kind of machine code instructions to use, and you actually still need to know a bit about the Commodore 64 architecture, the register and everything, and how to actually program it in machine code. But This perhaps makes it a little bit easier instead of sitting at the real Commodore 64 or in Vice emulator and program. If you used to these tools like the Visual Studio Code and .NET, then perhaps it's easier if you want to explore a little bit of Commodore 64 coding. There are several other examples what you can do. This is one that draws sprites, and here you can see it makes a C64 sprite mono class, and then it actually uses that to draw onto the sprite. You don't actually need to have the bitmap, and then it makes it into sprite data with a call to 2 bits. And then it simply runs the machine code you need to run to show some sprites. Let's see that now. Yes, there you have it. 8 sprites in different colors, and it made circles with the draw command instead of actually having the bitmap data. So that's kind of cool. So let's see if we can extend this if we want also to draw a square or something. We see all the various commands that it has. Draw rect. So we can try that. Now we generate a sprite that first has an oval drawn and then a rect. Yeah, that actually worked. So now we can just use the VIC2 registers and code in the actual movement of the sprites if you want that. This one is interesting. This is a music program. It actually plays a SID sound and it reads the raw SID data from the file system of your computer, and then using some code it actually has a built-in SID player, and it outputs some stuff, labels and stuff onto the screen, and then just plays the SID, and here's already a SID file raising the beam. So let's try this one then. Okay, it plays. Yeah, it seems like it's a little bit low volume. Yeah, kind of cool. I guess the volume was set by the program, and you can of course make your own SID player by using this, and you can change of course and program some fancy user interface or demo-like interface with this if you want. Yeah, here it actually controls the voice by setting the volume to 10%. Yeah, I wasn't aware of that. You can actually code against the voice emulator here if you want. You can of course use the full Visual Studio if you want to, and do all kinds of debugging and stuff like that. I have loaded one of his other examples from his GitHub page, and here's Visual Studio, and I set some breakpoints, and I just run this now, and of course you can debug. Now I'm in the debugger. I can jump to the next step, and here we can see what's happening. If you can debug the actual code running on the C64 emulator, I'm not sure, I don't think so, but it might. You see here I'm jumping through the various parts of the code, but this is the .NET code, how to actually debug the running assembly code in the Vice emulator. I'm not sure, I think there are solutions for that in other Commodore 64 development tools. Another thing that's kind of cool is that not only can you program the actual C64 using basic or assembly code, you can actually program and make disk images with this. So this is an example of that. You actually just write some basic code or machine code, and then you can just simply save it into a D64 file that you can actually load right into your computer or to the Vice emulator. This is an example of that. Let's modify it a little bit. Hello World 1, let's change that to Hello Retro C64. Yeah, let's try this and run it. So now it compiles it, and then it actually made a D64 file which it loaded into Vice. But of course now we can find that D64 file and use it as we want. I'm sure it is stored into the bin folder here. Yeah, here you have it. Here we find the D64 file. Yeah, these are the old programs we tested before, but here you can see it actually made 2 D64 disk images. Of course, you can copy this onto your memory card or onto a real floppy disk if you want to do that and run it on a real Commodore 64. Or if you want, you can just start the VICE emulator. Let's say you have made a little game and then you have produced your D64 files. You just drag it into VICE and then it runs it. Yeah, that's kind of cool. Yeah, here's the final example from the .NET conference where this was shown. Yeah, so that's what you can do with this library. Yeah, I just changed the sprites into a letter A. That was easy enough for me. Yeah, I'm not really that into Commodore 64 programming. I was before, back in the day, but now I, for the most part, has forgotten about it. However, I could use a tool like this and start doing it again. It would be easier for me. Yes, so that was it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like this content, I would like to hear your comments on that and hit that like button if you want. Just want to say thanks for watching and I see you next time. Bye bye.